Okay, so in this topology, we have two different networks basically, right? So in this side, we have VLAN 10, VLAN 20, and VLAN 30. And we also have the same on this side. On this side, we have this added IP phone, which is going to belong to a different VLAN, VLAN 40, and is going to attach PC7, which belongs to VLAN 10. So we have four different VLANs, 10, 20, 30, and then IP phone, the voice VLAN. We need to configure the VLANs and also give names to each VLAN, and the name have to be exactly the same as given here in this table. So it's case sensitive. On the second part, we need to apply the ports to the VLANs on SWB and SWC. Then after that, we have to configure the appropriate port on switch C or SWC for the voice VLAN functionality. Then we have to create the virtual management interface on all three switches. We need to then address the virtual management interface according to addressing table. Alright, so the switches should not be able to ping each other. And that makes sense. Part 3, we need to then configure the static trunking on the link between SWA and SWB. And then finally, a dynamic trunking between SWA and SWC. Alright, so back to the topology. To complete that, I have already created this nice configuration. So it will take care, it's going to create the VLANs, and then it's going to create the name for the VLAN. After that, it's going to then assign a VLAN to the specific port. As we can see, since we're dealing with the same kind of subnets here, so as you can see on this section, VLAN 10 is connected to Fast Ethernet 0/1, VLAN 20 to 2, and VLAN 30 to 3. So is the case on this side. So we can save some time by just creating a master configuration list that will take care of all of that. It will take care of the VLAN configuration, the name for the VLAN's configuration, and also assign the VLAN to the specific port. After that, we need to also create the management VLAN, which is VLAN 99, and apply the management IP address. So that is going to be different. When it comes to the management VLAN, we know that each switch will have a different IP address. So that's why I have this section right here, which is for SWC switch, but I have it commented, so the switch is going to ignore it. Uh, First, we're going to work with SWB. So let's bring the CLI. I'm going to switch the screen to make it big. and we are going to basically copy and paste that configuration note that we have here. All right. First, we go into the enable mode and configuration mode. I'm going to copy my configuration list all the way to here. That's all we need. I'm gonna copy that and paste it there. Okay, now take a look at what happens on the switch. So now the lights are amber. Okay, so it's taking the configuration very well. Okay, so that looks it's looking good. So what we need to do now is to do the same thing, but on the other switch. So let's close this CLI for that switch, and we're going to open the CLI for switch SWC. All right, okay. And we are going to apply the same configuration. Let me go ahead and make this bigger. We're going to go to enable mode, configure mode, and I will bring my note. Now the difference is that I'm not going to use this IP address. So I'm going to comment it by doing this. And I'm going to uncomment the one that actually belongs to SWC. I can also as well just uh, erase this section right here. But just comment it. If we comment this command, the switch is going to ignore it. So I copy it and I'm going to paste it. Okay. So because it's being commented out, the switch is going to ignore it. And just to confirm, I can go and verify that. So if I go and show interface VLAN 99, and I can do let's see the entire configuration for that specific interface. We can see that the actual IP address that has been applied to that is the one that is not commented. So the one that was commented, this one right here, as you guys can see, the switch ignore it and instead apply the one that was not commented, and that is what we wanted. All right, so we know that that is working as it should. Now we close this and we are pretty much done with that part of the configuration instructions. Now what we need to take care now, since we got this taken care of, uh, is that we need to apply the voice VLAN on switch C. So bring this back up, and we know that VLAN 40 is the one for the VLAN, for the voice VLAN. VLAN 40 voice. So we need to go to the interface fast 0/4 and apply the configuration for the voice VLAN. Terminal, interface, fast Ethernet 0/4. Now the first thing, we need to add the VLAN 10 that also belongs to that interface. So VLAN, okay, switch mode, access, switch mode, switch port, access, VLAN 10. Okay, so VLAN 10 has been already assigned to that interface as we know we need to do. Okay, so now let's do the IP phone VLAN, which is VLAN 40. That's for the voice VLAN. So we're going to do switch port voice VLAN 40. Then we need to extend the trust boundary of the interface to allow the IP phone to pass traffic through. And let's make the switch trust the IP phone configurations. To do that, we need to apply MLS, okay, QoS, trust, COS, and that will take care of that. All right. So that is all we need to do when it comes to interfaces, VLANs, and addressing. Now, what we need to focus is on SWA and the links in between uh, the two different networks here. We know that this side has to be configured as a static trunk, and this side has to be configured as a dynamic trunk. Now let's go ahead and work with that. For that, I like to bring the instructions again, and we haven't done that in here, but we need to do two different things. First, we need to also configure the VLANs and their names. So that's what we're going to do with the copy and paste. That's done. Now let's focus on the interfaces. According to the instructions for dynamic trunking and static trunking, between switch A and switch B, it has to be a static trunk. And we need to disable dynamic trunk. Alright, we need to disable DTP dynamic trunking protocol on the switch port on both ends of the trunk link. Then configure the trunk with the native VLAN, which is native VLAN 100. Okay, so let's do that. Interface, gigabit. What is the gigabit 1 and 2? Okay, so 0/1 switch port mode trunk. So that's static. By doing that, we are disabling dynamic trunking protocol. Switch port trunk native VLAN 100, I believe it is. Just make sure double check on that. The native VLAN is 100, correct. So we were right there. And this is going to bring an error. It's going to bring a mismatch in between uh, switch B and this switch because by default the native VLAN is VLAN 1, and then after making that change here, then it's going to spit out an error saying that there is a configuration mismatch on the native VLAN. Okay, so we just did change that, and now if we look at the other switch, the other end of the switch, okay, we will see that the error just came up, and we need to fix that. To fix that, we're going to jump to switch B and also apply the same configuration. This time is gigabit 0 slash 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that is the one. Switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk, native VLAN 100, and that will then restore consistency on configuration. Now we are pretty much done with that. So the next thing now is that we need to take care of the dynamic trunking configuration on the other side. So go back to the switch, and that side is going to be gigabit 0 slash 2. All right, again, that's 2. Now here's the instructions for dynamic trunking. We need to assume that the trunk port on SWC is set to default dynamic trunking protocol mode for switches, the switch 2960. However, that will be the same case. It's not just to this switch, but any switch that has a version of 15 uh, and above. The default dynamic trunking protocol mode for this switch will be dynamic auto. Now, in order to successfully negotiate a dynamic trunk between the two switches, we need to then, let me bring the switch again. In order to successfully configure a dynamic trunking between these two, since this is the default, which is dynamic auto, then it means that to negotiate, we need to bring this to be a desirable mode. So that's what we're going to do now. So switch port mode, okay, dynamic desirable. Okay, so that will take care of this side. All right, so but let's confirm that it has indeed become a trunk. So we're going to get out of here, or we can do show trunk and get out and show interface trunk. And yeah, we can see here gigabit 0/2 is mode auto encapsulation 802.1q and is trunking for native VLAN 1. Now that's something that we need to fix because we know that the native VLAN should be VLAN 100 and that was the next step on both ends. So for your terminal, switch port, trunk, native VLAN 100. Here's the inconsistent local VLAN. We know that's normal. What we need to do is to jump over here and apply the same. Okay, make sure that we're on the correct interface. So trunk, native VLAN 100. Good. All right. So now we also need to apply the so this side is negotiating. We need to apply, and the other side it should not negotiate. And let me confirm that that's the case. And we have with the show dynamic trunking protocol, we have that it is sending, it's trunking is dynamic trunking. All right, so we do not want to use that. We need to be static. So to do that, we need to stop specifically telling the switch not to negotiate. So interface gigabit 0/1 switch port non-negotiate. And then we have to do the same thing on the other side. Non-negotiate. Okay. So we done here. We are done here, but we need to apply the IP address for management. And for that, we have to go to the interface. interface VLAN 99, and then IP address, which is according to configuration is 192.168.99.252. So let's copy and paste that here. 255.255.255.0/24. We apply that. All right, that's good. Okay, so show IP internet interface brief. What we have here is the VLAN 99 interface is up and up. It has a this address, and this is switch C 254 255. Okay, that's good. Up and up. Let's go to switch A. Make sure that we have our configuration correct. Do show IP interface brief. Up and up. VLAN 99. That's the management. 252. Switch A. Correct. Let's make sure that we have that taken care of also as well. Do show IP interface brief, and over here we don't have the IP address. Looks like we forgot to add that, and it's good thing that we're making sure double checking our work. So yes, interface VLAN 99. Okay, IP address. That switch B going to be this one, and 255.255.255.0. Okay, so double checking that again, and there we go. There it is. Okay, so now let's see what we have over here on the status. Okay, and looks like it is complete at 100%. Okay, so completion 100%. Let's check the results. Okay, so yeah, congratulations on completing the activity. So that was a really fun activity, which gets you to configure dynamic and static trunking protocols. And got to also expose the configuration for voice VLAN.